I watched through my security camera as the HOA president screamed at my wife. Then she pulled a gun. Shot my 3-day-old daughter. She had no idea I spent 20 years as county sheriff. She had no idea I knew every judge, every cop, every lawyer. Her biggest mistake. She just made this personal. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching, also like and subscribe for more stories. My name is David Miller. For 20 years I wore the badge of county sheriff with pride. I'd seen the worst of humanity and somehow still believed in the good. When I retired last year, I thought my days of dealing with criminals were over. I was wrong. It was a sunny Tuesday afternoon in May when my world shattered into a million pieces. My wife Sarah and I had just brought our newborn daughter Emma home from the hospital 3 days ago. She was perfect. Tiny fingers, soft brown hair, and eyes that looked at you like you were her whole universe. Sarah was still recovering from a difficult delivery, but her face glowed with pure love every time she held our baby girl. We lived in a quiet neighborhood called Maplewood Heights. It was the kind of place where kids rode bikes on smooth sidewalks and neighbors waved from their porches. Or at least, that's what it used to be before Karen Hutchins became the HOA president. Karen was a nightmare wrapped in expensive clothes and fake smiles. She had short blonde hair cut in that aggressive, I want to speak to your manager style. Her face was always twisted in disapproval, always finding something wrong with everyone. She walked around the neighborhood with a clipboard like she owned every blade of grass. For months she'd been harassing us. First it was our mailbox. She said it was 2 inches too far to the left, according to HOA regulations. Then it was our garden flowers. Wrong shade of petunias, she claimed. Then our car was parked 3 inches over the driveway edge. Every week, a new violation notice. Every week, a new fine. I tried to be patient. I tried to be kind. I'd paid the ridiculous fines, moved the mailbox, replanted the flowers. But nothing was ever good enough for Karen. That Tuesday, Sarah wanted to take Emma for her first real walk outside. The doctor said fresh air would be good for both of them. Sarah was weak, still healing, but she was determined to be a good mother. She dressed Emma in a tiny pink onesie with little butterflies on it. I can still see that outfit in my mind, every single day. I was in my home office, finishing some paperwork for my security consulting business. Through the window, I could see Sarah walking slowly down our driveway, pushing Emma's stroller. She was smiling, talking softly to our daughter. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Then I saw Karen's black SUV coming down the street. Too fast. Way too fast. I felt my gut tighten. Something was wrong. Karen never just drove past our house. She always stopped, always had something to say. I stood up from my desk, watching. Karen's SUV screeched to a stop right in front of our driveway. She jumped out, clipboard in hand, her face already red with anger. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could see Sarah's expression change from peaceful to confused to afraid. I moved toward the front door, but I wasn't running yet. I thought it was just another complaint. Another stupid violation. I was tired of it, but I didn't know. Through the window, I saw Karen jabbing her finger at the stroller. Sarah was shaking her head, holding up her hand like she was trying to calm Karen down. But Karen was screaming now. I could hear her voice through the walls. Your stroller is blocking the sidewalk. This is a violation. I opened my front door just as Sarah's voice rose, stronger than I'd heard it in days. It's not blocking anything. Please, you're scaring my baby. Emma started crying. That beautiful, tiny cry that breaks your heart and makes you want to protect her from everything bad in the world. I don't care about your baby. Karen shrieked. The rules are the rules. That's when I started running. Something in Karen's voice, something in her eyes. In my 20 years as sheriff, I'd learned to recognize danger. And I was seeing it now. Ma'am, please step back, I called out, using my old sheriff voice. Calm but commanding. You're too close. Karen whirled around to face me. Oh, the big retired sheriff. You think you're special? You think you don't have to follow the rules like everyone else? Karen, my wife just had surgery. She's taking our newborn for a walk. There's no violation here. I was on the lawn now, moving towards Sarah and Emma. There is a violation. Karen screamed. Her face was purple now. Veins stood out on her neck. That stroller is 3 inches over the sidewalk boundary. I have the measurements right here. She waved her clipboard like a weapon. Sarah was crying now, trying to soothe Emma, trying to pull the stroller back. I'm sorry, Sarah sobbed. I'm sorry, I'll move it. Please just stop yelling. Sarah, don't apologize, I said firmly. I was 10 feet away now. You did nothing wrong. Wrong? Karen shouted. You people think you're above the law. Well, I'm the law in this neighborhood. Me. That's when Karen grabbed the stroller handle. She yanked it hard, trying to pull it away from Sarah. My wife, weak from surgery, stumbled forward. She tried to hold on, tried to protect our baby. Let go, I shouted, breaking into a full run. But Karen yanked harder. The stroller jerked. Sarah's hands slipped. The stroller tilted, and for one horrible moment I thought Emma was going to fall out onto the concrete. Sarah screamed and lunged forward, catching the stroller with her body. She fell to her knees, crying out in pain. Her stitches. God, her stitches from the C-section. You crazy woman. I roared. Get away from my family. I was 5 feet away when Karen reached into her designer purse. Time slowed down. I saw her hand come out. I saw the gun. A small silver pistol, shaking in her grip. No one talks to me like that. Karen screamed. No one. Karen put the gun down. My training kicked in. Hands up. Voice steady despite the terror flooding through me. Put it down now. You don't want to do this. I'll show you people. Karen's hand was trembling, but her finger was on the trigger. I'll show you what happens when you disrespect me. Sarah was on the ground, bent over the stroller, covering Emma with her body. Please, she sobbed. Please don't hurt my baby. Please, I'm begging you. I moved slowly to the side, trying to position myself between the gun and my family. Karen, look at me. Look at me, not them. I'm the one you're angry at, right? I'm the sheriff. I'm the one who thinks he's special. Karen's wild eyes swung toward me. The gun followed. That's right, I said softly. I'm the problem. So point that gun at me. Leave my wife and baby alone. For a second I thought it would work. The gun centered on my chest. Better me than them. I'd take a bullet 1,000 times to save them. But then Emma cried again. That tiny helpless sound. Karen's face twisted into something inhuman. Pure rage. Shut that baby up. She swung the gun back toward the stroller. No. I dove forward, but I was too far away. 3 feet too far. 3 feet that might as well have been a mile. The gun went off. The sound exploded through the quiet neighborhood. Once. Twice. 3 times. I heard Sarah screaming. I heard my own voice roaring, a sound I didn't recognize. I heard Karen laughing, a high-pitched, insane laugh. I crashed into Karen, slamming her to the ground. The gun flew from her hand, skittering across the sidewalk. I didn't care about her. I turned away immediately, scrambling toward my family. Sarah was hunched over the stroller, her body shaking. Blood. There was blood on her shirt, on the stroller, on the ground. Sarah. I grabbed her shoulders. Baby, are you hit? She looked up at me. Her face was white, eyes wide with shock. Emma, she whispered. David, she shot Emma. The world stopped. Everything stopped. Sound, time, air, everything. I looked down into the stroller. My beautiful baby girl, dressed in her butterfly onesie, her tiny face scrunched up, was bleeding from her arm. A bullet had grazed her shoulder. Another had gone through the stroller, missing her by inches. The third had hit the stroller's wheel. Emma was crying, screaming, her little face red with pain and fear. Call 911. I shouted to the neighbors who were running from their houses. Call 911 now. I grabbed my shirt, ripped it off, and pressed it against Emma's wound. So small. She was so small. The wound looked huge on her tiny arm. Blood was soaking through the fabric. It's okay, baby girl, I was crying, talking to Emma while Sarah held her other hand. Daddy's here. Daddy's got you. You're going to be okay. Behind us, Karen was on the ground where I'd left her, still laughing. She was violating the rules, Karen said in a sing-song voice. Violating the rules. Had to enforce the rules. I wanted to turn around. I wanted to grab her and make her stop breathing. 20 years of training, of restraint, of following the law, all of it was screaming at me to break her into pieces. But my daughter needed me more. My wife needed me more. The ambulance arrived in 4 minutes. It felt like 4 years. The paramedics were fast, professional. They got Emma stabilized, got in 4 in her impossibly small arm. They checked Sarah, saw she was bleeding through her shirt. Her stitches had ripped open. I don't care about me. Sarah sobbed. Just save my baby. Ma'am, we're taking care of both of you, the female paramedic said gently. Your baby's stable. The wound looks worse than it is. But we need to get you both to the hospital right now. I rode in the ambulance, holding Sarah's hand while she held Emma. I watched my 3-day-old daughter fighting for her life. I watched my wife crying so hard she couldn't breathe, torn between her own pain and fear for our child. Behind us, I could hear the police arriving. I heard Karen still ranting about HOA violations and rules. I heard the officers telling her she was under arrest. I heard her screaming that she was the victim, that we had disrespected her, that she had every right to defend herself. At the hospital they took Emma straight to surgery. The bullet had fractured her tiny shoulder bone. They needed to remove fragments, repair the damage. A team of pediatric surgeons worked for 3 hours. 3 hours of hell. 3 hours of pacing. 3 hours of Sarah crying in a hospital bed while doctors stitched her back together. 3 hours of replaying everything in my mind, wondering what I could have done differently. My phone kept ringing. My former deputy, Tom Jackson, was one of the first calls. Sheriff, David, I'm so sorry. I'm handling the arrest. Karen's in custody. She's claiming self-defense. Says you attacked her, that she was afraid for her life. I closed my eyes. Tom, there are witnesses. Neighbors saw everything. I know. We have 5 witnesses. They all tell the same story. Karen attacked your wife, pulled a gun, shot your baby girl. It's clear as day. But her lawyer's already talking about mental health issues, about HOA stress, about diminished capacity. I don't care about her excuses, Tom. I want her locked up forever. We're charging her with attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and child endangerment. The DA says she's looking at 20 to life. But David. Tom's voice dropped. You know how the system works. You know how lawyers are. They're going to fight this. I knew. God help me, I knew exactly how it worked. I'd seen violent criminals walk free on technicalities. I'd seen victims destroyed on the witness stand. I'd seen justice fail more times than I wanted to remember. But this was my daughter. This was different. Emma survived the surgery. The doctors said she was incredibly lucky. A few millimeters to the left and the bullet would have hit her lung. A few millimeters the other way and it would have severed an artery. She would have scars, they said. Physical therapy would be needed as she grew. But she would live. She would be okay. When they finally let us see her, she was sleeping in a tiny hospital crib, her arm bandaged, monitors beeping softly. Sarah collapsed at her bedside, sobbing with relief. I stood behind my wife, one hand on her shoulder, the other reaching down to touch Emma's tiny fingers. I'm sorry, Sarah kept whispering. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect her. Baby, this wasn't your fault, I told her firmly. None of this was your fault. You did everything right. You tried to shield her with your body. You're a hero. But Sarah couldn't hear me. The guilt was eating her alive. She'd been there when Emma got shot. She'd been holding the stroller. In her mind, she'd failed as a mother on the most basic level. Keep your baby safe. Over the next few days, the story spread. News crews showed up at the hospital. HOA president shoots newborn baby over sidewalk violation, was the headline. It went national. Then international. People were outraged. The HOA fired Karen immediately. Neighbors came forward with stories of Karen's abuse, threats, harassment, intimidation. One elderly man said Karen had threatened his life when his grass was too long. But Karen's lawyer was working hard too. They claimed Karen had a mental breakdown. They said the stress of being HOA president had overwhelmed her. They brought in psychiatrists who testified that Karen was suffering from paranoid delusions. They painted her as a victim of mental illness, not a violent criminal. The preliminary hearing was set for 6 weeks after the shooting. 6 weeks of watching my daughter slowly heal. 6 weeks of watching Sarah sink into depression, barely able to hold Emma without breaking down. 6 weeks of my own rage building, festering, growing into something dark and ugly. My former colleagues called every day. They wanted updates on Emma. They offered support. They also warned me that Karen's legal team was good. Really good. They were going to push for reduced charges, maybe even probation with psychiatric treatment. You know the system, David, Tom said over coffee one morning. Karen's a white woman with no criminal record. She's got money for good lawyers. They're going to say she was insane at the time. Temporarily insane. They're going to say she's not a danger anymore because she's on medication now. The judge might go easy on her. She shot my baby, I said quietly. She shot my 3-day-old daughter because we violated some fake HOA rule. She needs to go to prison forever. I agree. We all agree. But the law, you know how it is. I did know. And it was killing me. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't just wait for the legal system to maybe, possibly, hopefully give us justice. So I started investigating. Not officially, I wasn't a cop anymore. But I had 20 years of experience and contacts in every law enforcement agency in the state. I started digging into Karen's past. What I found made my blood run cold. Karen had been HOA president in 2 other neighborhoods before Maplewood Heights. In the first one, she'd been fired after multiple complaints of harassment. In the second one, she'd been sued by 3 different families. One of those lawsuits alleged that Karen had poisoned their dog after they violated a landscaping rule. The case was settled out of court with a non-disclosure agreement. I found more. Karen had been arrested twice for assault before moving to our state. Both times, the charges were dropped after she agreed to anger management classes. There were restraining orders from former neighbors. There were complaints to police about threats and stalking. Karen Hutchins wasn't just a crazy HOA president. She was a serial abuser who'd been getting away with it for years. I compiled everything into a file. Photos, police reports, court documents, witness statements. I gave it to Tom, who gave it to the DA. "This is good," the DA told me when we met in her office. Her name was Linda Martinez, and I'd worked with her for years when I was sheriff. "This shows a pattern of violent behavior. It undermines the temporary insanity defense. But David, I need to be honest with you. Even with all this, Karen's lawyers are going to fight hard. They're claiming the previous incidents were isolated and that she'd been successfully managing her issues until the stress of this HOA position triggered a breakdown." "What are you saying, Linda?" She sighed. "I'm saying I can't promise you life in prison. I can promise 20 years, maybe. With good behavior, she could be out in 15. I know that's not what you want to hear. My daughter is 2 months old. In 15 years, she'll be 15. Karen will still be young enough to hurt someone else. To hurt her if she wants revenge. I know. I'm sorry. But I'm going to fight for every year I can get." I left that meeting feeling hollow. 15 years. Maybe 15 years. And that was if everything went perfectly at trial. If the jury convicted on all charges. If the judge gave the maximum sentence. If. That night, I sat in Emma's nursery watching her sleep in her crib. The doctors said she was healing well. The bullet wound was closing. She'd need surgery again when she was older to fix the bone properly, but for now she was okay. Sarah came in, stood beside me. She'd lost weight. She wasn't sleeping. She was seeing a therapist, but it wasn't helping much. "I had a nightmare," she whispered. "I dreamed Karen came back. I dreamed she finished what she started." I pulled Sarah close. "She's in jail. She can't hurt you anymore. But she will get out eventually, won't she?" "That's what the DA said. She'll get out someday." I didn't answer. We both knew the truth. The trial started on a cold morning in November. Emma was 6 months old now. Healthy, growing, smiling. But the scars on her shoulder were still angry and red. They would fade, the doctor said, but never completely disappear. Sarah had to testify. I watched her walk to the witness stand, so small and fragile. She told the story in a shaking voice. She described how Karen grabbed the stroller. How she fell. How she tried to shield Emma with her body. How Karen pulled the gun and fired. "Did you feel threatened?" Karen's lawyer asked on cross-examination. "Yes," Sarah whispered. "But you admit you were blocking the sidewalk with your stroller?" Objection. Linda shot to her feet. Irrelevant and victim-blaming. "Sustained," the judge said. But the damage was done. The lawyer had planted the seed. Maybe Sarah was partly to blame. When it was my turn to testify, I told my story clearly. I described Karen's harassment. The violations. The fines. The escalating behavior. I described the shooting in detail. "Mr. Miller, you were a county sheriff for 20 years, correct?" Karen's lawyer asked. "That's correct. So you're trained in hand-to-hand combat? You're a large, intimidating man?" "I'm trained in law enforcement techniques, yes." "And when my client pulled out her gun, you charged at her, didn't you?" "I tried to protect my family." "You attacked her. You knocked her to the ground. You could have killed her with your bare hands, couldn't you?" Objection. Linda shouted. "Withdrawn," the lawyer said smugly. But again the seed was planted. Maybe I was the aggressor. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Neighbors testified about Karen's behavior. Medical experts testified about Emma's injuries. Psychiatrists testified about Karen's mental state. Karen herself took the stand. She cried. She apologized. She said she didn't remember most of what happened. She said she'd been under so much stress, so much pressure. She said she'd never meant to hurt anyone. "I don't even remember pulling the trigger," she sobbed. "I just remember thinking that everyone was against me. That no one respected the rules. That I had to do something. But I never wanted to hurt a baby. Never. I love children." It was a performance. A sick, calculated performance. And I could see some of the jurors buying it. The jury deliberated for 2 days. 2 days of sitting in the courthouse, waiting. 2 days of watching Karen sit calmly with her lawyers, confident in her expensive suit. When the jury came back, the foreman stood. On the charge of attempted murder, we find the defendant guilty. I grabbed Sarah's hand. She was shaking. On the charge of assault with a deadly weapon, we find the defendant guilty. Karen's face went pale. Her lawyer whispered something to her. On the charge of child endangerment, we find the defendant guilty. 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 Guilty on all counts. Karen burst into tears. Her lawyer put an arm around her. The judge ordered her remanded into custody pending sentencing. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed us. "How do you feel about the verdict?" they shouted. "Justice was served today," I said carefully. "My daughter will carry the scars of Karen Hutchins' violence for the rest of her life. Today the jury said that's not acceptable. That shooting a baby over an HOA violation is not acceptable." Sentencing was set for a month later. Linda told us she'd be asking for the maximum, 25 years. "With good behavior she'll serve maybe 18, Linda warned us. "But it's the best we can hope for." 18 years. Emma would be 18. An adult. Hopefully far away from here, living her life. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. The sentencing hearing was emotional. Sarah read a victim impact statement. She described the nightmares, the panic attacks, the guilt, the fear. "I can't leave my house without looking over my shoulder," Sarah said through tears. "I can't take my daughter for a walk. I can't trust anyone. Karen Hutchins didn't just hurt my baby's body. She hurt all of our souls." I read my statement next. I talked about Emma's surgeries, the physical therapy, the scars, the future surgeries she'd need as she grew. "Your Honor, Karen Hutchins had every opportunity to stop. She could have walked away. She could have called the police if she really thought we were violating a rule. But instead she chose violence. She chose to pull a gun on a defenseless newborn baby. She chose to pull the trigger not once but 3 times. She tried to kill my daughter over a stroller placement. That level of cruelty, that level of evil, deserves the maximum punishment." Karen spoke last. She apologized again. She cried again. She begged for mercy. "I'm not that person anymore," she sobbed. "The medication has helped. Therapy has helped. I'll never touch a gun again. Please, I'm not a danger. I just want a chance to prove I can be better." The judge listened to everything. Then he spoke. "Ms. Hutchins, I've reviewed your history carefully. The previous arrests, the complaints, the pattern of escalating violence. This was not a momentary lapse in judgment. This was the culmination of years of abusive behavior. You chose to bring a gun to an argument about sidewalk space. You chose to fire that gun at a 3-day-old baby. The jury found you guilty, and I agree with their verdict completely." He paused, looking directly at Karen. "You showed no mercy to that innocent child. You showed no restraint. You showed no humanity. Therefore, I see no reason to show you mercy now. I sentence you to the maximum term allowed by law. 25 years in state prison, with no possibility of parole for at least 20 years. Karen screamed. Her lawyers objected, said they'd appeal. But the judge was done. Court is adjourned. Karen was taken away in handcuffs, still screaming about how unfair it was. I felt Sarah collapse against me, crying with relief. "It's over," I whispered. "It's finally over." But it wasn't over. Not really. The nightmares didn't stop. Sarah's panic attacks didn't stop. The fear didn't stop. We moved out of Maplewood Heights. We couldn't live in that house anymore, couldn't walk on that sidewalk where Emma's blood had stained the concrete. We bought a small place in the country with no HOA, no neighbors close enough to cause trouble. Emma continued to grow. At her 1-year birthday, she took her first steps. Sarah and I cried watching her walk, this beautiful miracle who'd survived something no baby should ever face. The scars on her shoulder were still there, would always be there. But she was strong. She was healthy. She was loved. Sarah slowly started to heal too. Therapy helped. Time helped. Watching Emma thrive helped most of all. As for me, I started a foundation. The Emma Miller Foundation for HOA Abuse Victims. We help people who are being harassed by HOAs. We provide legal support, counseling, resources. We push for HOA reform laws. We make sure Karen's violence wasn't completely senseless. Maybe some good can come from it. The local news did a follow-up story on Emma's first birthday. They showed her walking, smiling, playing. They talked about how far we'd come. "Do you forgive Karen Hutchins?" the reporter asked me. I looked at Emma playing with her toys on the floor. I looked at Sarah, finally smiling again. "No," I said honestly. I don't forgive her. What she did was unforgivable. But I'm not going to let her win by staying angry forever. I'm going to focus on my family. On healing. On making sure this never happens to anyone else. 3 years after the shooting, I got a call from Linda Martinez. Karen's appeal was denied, she told me. Final decision. She's staying in prison for the full 20 years minimum. I closed my eyes, feeling something release in my chest. Emma was 3 now. In 17 more years, she'd be 20. An adult living her own life. And Karen would still be behind bars. Thank you, Linda. For everything. Thank you for trusting the system even when it seemed like it was failing you. I hung up and walked into the living room. Emma was coloring, her small hand gripping a crayon. The scar on her shoulder was visible under her t-shirt, but she never complained about it. She didn't even remember what happened, thank God. Sarah was cooking dinner, humming softly. She saw my face and knew immediately. The appeal? She asked. Denied. She's staying in prison. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. But this time they were tears of relief. Of closure. Of finally being able to breathe. That night we put Emma to bed together. We read her favorite book about a brave little girl who conquered monsters. We kissed her goodnight, careful not to touch her shoulder too hard. After she was asleep, Sarah and I sat on the back porch looking at the stars. We made it, Sarah said softly. We actually made it through this. We did, I agreed. Emma's safe. You're healing. Karen's in prison where she belongs. Do you think about what you would have done? Sarah asked quietly. If the law hadn't worked? If she'd gotten away with it? I thought about that honestly. In those dark days after the shooting, I'd had thoughts. Dark thoughts. Violent thoughts. The kind of thoughts that scared me because I knew I was capable of acting on them. Yeah, I admitted. I had some bad thoughts. But the system worked, Sarah. Not perfectly, not quickly, but it worked. That's what I spent 20 years believing in. I'm glad I didn't have to lose that faith. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Sarah said, I'm proud of us. For surviving this. For protecting Emma. For getting justice the right way. Me too, baby. Me too. Inside, our daughter slept peacefully, safe and loved. The scars would always be there, a reminder of how close we came to losing everything. But scars fade. Pain fades. Love remains. Karen Hutchins thought she was above the law. She thought her power as HOA president gave her the right to terrorize, to threaten, to hurt. She thought shooting a baby would be just another problem she could talk her way out of. She was wrong. Justice found her. And justice won. This story is dedicated to all the families who've suffered abuse at the hands of those who believe power makes them untouchable. Justice may not be quick, but it comes. And when it does, it comes with the full force of the law behind it.